Today we take you to the Lot departement. We are heading towards the village of Loubressac. Now we are going to follow the Dordogne river. Look at that landscape, cliffs, and to the right plenty of walnut trees. A very characteristic picture of the Dordogne Lotoise. Look at that. I hope that the rock is solid. Look at the overhang that it makes, and the Dordogne right beside. So beautiful. We are now in the village of Loubressac. It is the starting point of the short hike we are going to do now. This hike will take us to the chasm of Padirac. We are now in the square of the village of Loubressac. Here probably were standing the fairs in the middle of the 19th century. We shall speak again of those fairs. And behind me is a restaurant. Maybe it's the same place where one of the many inns of Loubressac was still standing. So actually, Loubressac is a village on top of a rock. If you watch to the left, you could see the Dordogne River Valley with the chateau of Castelnau. And if you see to the right, you can discover in the bottom of the valley the town of Saint-Céré, dominated by the towers of the chateau of Saint-Laurent. And here is the house, a typical house as it was before mass tourism. This one has not been restored, and you can see that it's kind of basic. I'm not sure that there was the power. I don't see any electric wire. You also see that the roof has two kinds of tiles. The tiles were only replaced when it was really time to replace them. You also see the beautiful staircase made again of those huge slabs of limestone that was leading to a room above the stable probably. And there is still a feature, a modern feature. You see this kind of place for washing the garments. We call it a lavoir. It's made of cement. It was quite modern for these people. And of course, around you find the most important trees that were found in this area. It is here, the walnut. There is also a beautiful bush of honeysuckle that is smelling so well. So no doubt that this house soon will be bought by a wealthy foreigner, Parisian, who will transform it in second house. Another characteristic of this Causse, where we are now, see this limestone plateau, is those dry stone walls that you would find everywhere before. Now they are in very bad condition, so we do not have a good idea of what was this area 150 years ago. It was a kind of garden, it was well kept, well farmed. Now it's almost abandoned. Well, in another hand, it's the paradise of walkers, hunters, bikers, etc. And it's also the country of truffles. You would find those downy truffle trees, downy truffle oak, the one you see there. It's a perfect place for a truffle ground, which must be well drained. And you would find all kind of characteristic trees like the small oaks, like Montpellier maples, junipers, this kind of vegetation that is reminding what you find in Provence, actually, Mediterranean vegetation. Since the water is not retained at the surface because of the cracks that are found in the limestone, well, you don't see it anywhere. No water. Water was very rare. But underground, there is a lot of activity. You would find plenty of underground rivers. You would find those chasms, like the one we are going to see in Padirac. You would see plenty of very dangerous holes in the ground. The name is Ig. Sometimes they are more than 300 feet deep. Very dangerous because you don't see them, you don't see the mouth of those natural wells in the high grass. Although this area now looks absolutely empty and abandoned, it has known certain kind of prosperity in the past centuries. Lots of people were farming the ground when it was possible. Others were shepherds. Actually, there were plenty of sheep. There is even a special breed of sheep for the Causse. It is called the Causse sheep, and the characteristic is that they got two black spots around their eyes. So all that has vanished, particularly after the phylloxera crisis of the end of the 19th century, because there were a lot of vineyards in this area. Think of the wine of Causse, which is still very well known and very good actually, but there were vineyards everywhere. And another reason why this area started to get empty at the beginning of the 20th century is, of course, the First World War. Maybe we shall see the monument, le monument aux morts, that is in the middle of the square in Loubressac, and you will see a list of maybe 40 guys who were in their 20s. The majority of the French army was made of young farmers. We spoke of dry stone walls, but there is also a kind of architecture made of dry stones. There is one right here. You see it, the roof is made of big slabs of limestone. It's a small chamber in the middle where maybe one or two men could find a rest for a few hours. It's not really what we call a cabane or a caselle here in the lot. It looks more like what we call here a gariote. Same origin than guérite in French, but it's the same function, giving a protection, a shelter against the weather, the bad weather. So actually, if we undertook this short hike, it's not only to reach the chasm of Padirac, but it is also to honor the memory of a young woman whose name was Helen, who died right at the place where we are. First I want to read what is engraved on that little monument à la mémoire de Hélène Bombézy, morte martyre en ce lieu en 1844. In other words, the memory of Hélène Bombézy, who died as a martyr right where we are now in 1844. So it makes a long time that I know that footpath, and I don't know if it's my imagination or what, but I have the feeling that every time I pass here, the place is quite looked after, and often you find flowers. So I never heard about the story 30 or 40 years ago, but certainly people knew because the place was well kept. A few years ago, a teacher of a neighboring village decided to ask the pupils, please ask your grandparents if ever they remember about the monument of Helen and what would be the result. And actually it happened that some people, some old local families remembered the story, more or less. And now what I'm going to do is to try to tell you the story, the true story, as I could read it in a newspaper dating back to 1844. The name was La Gazette des Tribunaux, in other words, the Gazette of the courts. Mm-hmm. So here it is. The story goes that there is a man whose name is François Clarity. He's 36. He's a weaver from the hamlet of Lacoste, and we are in January 1844. He's going to the fair in the village of Loubressac. There he meets a friend, and they go to the inn, to the cabaret, and have some drinks. After a while, his friend decides to leave and propose to pay his drinks, but François Clarity refused and said, no, okay, go on, I'll invite you. And of course, later, François Clarity did not want to pay at all. He was alone at this moment in the cabaret with the waitress. The name of the waitress is Helene, Hélène Bombézy. She's also the daughter of the owners of the cabaret, and he decides to leave without paying. Of course, he's accused by Hélène of, how do you say that, leaving without paying, and soon it is known in the village. And of course, François Clarity is upset, and he wants to take revenge on Hélène. And he will even threaten her several times. There are witnesses, and that's it. Time is passing, and a few months later there is another fair in Loubressac. This time we are in October 1844, when this François Clarity is still trying to do some evil, to take revenge on Hélène. Is again threatening her of killing her, and one night he's even making a lot of noise in front of the door of the cabaret. Anyway, the day after the fair, Hélène decides to leave Loubressac and to walk to the next village of Miers, where she had found an employment as an apprentice in a tailor shop. So she decides to walk the way between the two villages, about 10 kilometers, and she walks the first kilometers with a friend of her, Vieille Case, but this one, after a place which name is Les Places, decides to take another direction, and she's alone, and she walks alone. And well, okay, you understand what's going to happen, because François Clarity followed her, he's very close, he waits to arrive to find a place where there is a small thicket, a small forest, and at this moment he grabs Hélène. He tells her that he wants to kiss her. She of course refuses and pushes him, but he throws her on the ground and knocks her down with a stone. And according to the words of La Gazette des Tribunaux is going to perpetrate his odious attempt. You understand that he rapes her, she cries, she shouts, but he decides to kill her, to finish her off with a stone. At such a point that the face will not be recognizable. Anyway, he drags the body into the bush, he hides the clothes of Helen, and he leaves. Fortunately, a young farmer who was working close to the place heard the cries, and he saw all the scene. And of course he went to the authorities and told what he saw. And soon after, François Clarity was under arrest. They found plenty of scratches on his arm, and even more, they found some personal objects in his house, personal objects that were belonging to Helene, and that was enough to be quoted first in Cahors, and then after, we are in 1844, to be sentenced death punishment. And actually, he will be guillotined in May 1845 in the next town of Saint-Céré. So, we are very close to the chasm of Padirac, which was supposed to be a kind of passageway towards the hell, underground, it was said, but this day of the 29th of October 1844, maybe the hell was outside. Okay, dear friends, now we are just in front of the Padirac chasm. It's one of the many chasms that are found in this area. Several tents of all sizes, of all depths. This one is particularly spectacular because in the bottom of the chasm you find a small underground river that you can navigate. And after that, plenty of huge rooms. It's really impressive, but as you can see, it's completely crowded today. And yes, again, we don't know where the hell he is, in the bottom of the chasm or outside.